if you are out in public and somebody looks at you and you can tell that they're attracted to you, they're checking you out, your brain process is saying, oh, I must look really, really good. I'm desirable, right? This person wants me. And if you like that brain process, which most people do, you will get a little bit of a high from that. Sex and porn addiction are what we call process addictions. This is as opposed to substance addictions, where we're actually injecting something into our body or ingesting a chemical so that we can get the high. Whereas in a process addiction, the high comes from a brain process. So for example, if you are out in public and somebody looks at you and you can tell that they're attracted to you, they're checking you out, your brain process is saying, oh, I must look really, really good. I'm desirable, right? This person wants me. And if you like that brain process, which most people do, you will get a little bit of a high from that. And this is how process addictions form. We find these brain processes, these stories, these circumstances that we enjoy. We like the way that they make us feel. We like the story of how we're being perceived by others. And then we get addicted to that process. Now, a lot of people, it's hard to understand the concept of a process addiction, right? Because nothing's going in the body. And so it's like, can someone really become addicted? And the answer is yes. There's tons of process addictions. I mean, the most common in the world are the addiction to money, success, workaholism. And the only reason that you don't see people having to go to treatment for their obsession with money and work is because, especially here in America, success, financial success is seen as normal. There's nothing wrong with it. And the second most common is shopping, right? People have a shopping addiction. So they are looking for things to buy, whether it be houses, rental properties, shoes, but people will incessantly, addictively look for things to buy. And it's not necessarily buying the object, it's the looking for things to buy. So these process addictions are all around us, and sex and porn fall into that category. The difference with a sex and porn addiction and affairs is that they're going to hurt your wife. It's going to harm your marriage. It could end up completely blowing up your life and destroying your family. And so the treatment of a process addiction is different than the treatment for a substance addiction. And I think this is why you see such a low recovery rate in the sex, porn, and affairs. It's estimated only 30% of men recover. And I don't think that's because it's really that hard to recover. I don't think that's why the recovery rate's so low. I think the recovery rate is low because it's hard to change all of those brain processes, especially if you're not necessarily trying to change them or if you don't know which ones you have to change. And so an analogy that I always share with people in terms of understanding how complex this recovery process is imagine if every single car in the world was custom made. It was one of a kind. It was made with parts from Home Depot, and the car was put together. So imagine if your car broke down and you went to a mechanic. It would take him quite a few days to figure out what the problem is because he's never seen a car like that before. And then even when he did find the problem, it would take him a couple of weeks to figure out what he's going to do for parts to fix this car that he's never seen before, a problem that he's never fixed before. And that's the best way to describe the nuances and the challenge with overcoming a sex or porn addiction is it's these brain processes that are unique to that man. It is stories that have been forming probably throughout this individual's entire life, all the way from childhood and then through every single sexual interaction through their whole entire life. There's these stories that we find that provide us pleasure. And a lot of us don't even know what these stories are that we like. And so, changing them when you're unaware of them can be really, really difficult. And one of the big things to do in early treatment is to identify these. A lot of men will call this the arousal template. But they're difficult to find, and I think they kind of show up throughout life. So being aware of these so that you can change your process addiction is imperative. And this is something that all people in recovery need to understand. If you're not seeing the sobriety and the results that you want from treating this like a very rudimentary substance addiction, it's because this isn't a substance addiction. Sobriety is pretty black and white. Are you taking the substance, taking the pills, drinking the alcohol, or are you not? It's sober or not. Whereas in a process addiction, it's like, okay, even if the addict isn't acting out sexually, are we still engaging in those brain processes? Because they're lighting up the same areas of the brain. So someone might be sober from their sobriety definition in the sense that they're not looking at pornography, they're not engaging in any sort of extramarital sexual behaviors, they're not talking to or texting affair partners, but at the same time, they're still engaging in brain processes that are not that unsimilar. And so, they're sober on paper, but they're not actually sober. And this is what increases that likelihood of relapse. So what are you to do with this? First off, you want to start diagnosing, what is my process addiction? What are these brain processes? What are the ones that I like the most? One of my favorite pieces of advice that we do in our group is, what are these ones that if taken from you, you would really miss? If you couldn't flirt anymore, you couldn't have people flirt with you, would you miss that? And I think if you really were honest with yourself, you would see a series of brain processes there that you really, really enjoy, some of which you might be addicted to.